having a lesser role throughout the team and saying that he doesn't have the ball in his hand as much anymore and he's got to take back a few steps. I probably imagine this is due to the developmental aspect of Scottie Barnes being on a team, but I want you guys to go back to what C.J Mccollum said about there are guys that could be impactful on other teams if they were given a larger role. Could he have been talking about Fred Vanvleet? And also Fred Vanvleet saying, hey, I'm kind of disgruntled with my role here. Could that be the guy that he's talking about, right? And I want you guys to also keep in mind that there have been talks about how the Toronto Raptors and the New Orleans Pelicans are poised to make a trade here, like I said earlier. And that's because these two teams, it makes sense for the New Orleans Pelicans to look at a guy like Fred VanVleet and go after him. He would be such a perfect fit for their teams. Pelicans have a good big three in the Western Conference of C.J McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson. But none of those guys have ever actually gone deep into the playoffs. None of those guys actually have experience in playing high stakes Game 7 NBA basketball in playoffs. Fred VanVleet does, right? Fred VanVleet, again, like I said, was a huge, crucial part in the Toronto Raptors' success on their way to the championship. The New Orleans Pelicans could use a guy like that, right? And the New Orleans Pelicans also have a treasure trove of tradable assets. Assets that could be used to make the roster even more stronger in preparation for their upcoming playoff run. Last year, they had a stellar playoff run. They almost took out the Phoenix Suns, but this year, the pressure is a little bit higher than last year. Last year, the pressure was just for them to make the playoffs. This year, it's to go a little bit deeper. They're the 3rd seed in the Western Conference right now. That comes with pressure. You can't just now make the playoffs. You have to at least win a few rounds. And a guy like Fred VanVleet would fit them perfectly and would help them out greatly. He is just the perfect supplemental player to come on there, be the 4th Big 4 now, with another mature guard like C.J McCollum. And in return, the Raptors could get back a treasure trove, a plethora of picks for him. A lot of draft capital that they could use in the upcoming draft. A draft that has a really high-profile player in Victor Wembanyama. It's a win-win situation for both teams. The Pelicans would be able to supercharge their offense, and the Raptors would be able to get back assets that they could use to properly build around Scottie Barnes. You have to remember, Scottie Barnes has only been in the league for 2 years, and most of the guys on the Toronto Raptors were there before he got there. It's not a proper build, and Scottie Barnes is going to be the centerpiece for the Raptors for the foreseeable future. And last but not least, finally, the last name that is always up in trade talks for the Raptors is O.G Anunoby. Every single team would love to have O.G Anunoby on their team. Last summer in the offseason, there were talks that the New York Knicks had interest in O.G Anunoby, that O.G Anunoby was going to be their plan B if they weren't able to land Donovan Mitchell. That ultimately fell through. The Knicks went out and they got Jalen Brunson. They could use someone like O.G Anunoby on their team. Now, it's been also reported that the price for O.G Anunoby would be a king's ransom. It would take a lot of draft capital, a lot of picks to get O.G Anunoby, but I think some teams will be willing to pull the trigger. This guy is highly coveted. He has a quiet personality. He doesn't cause a lot of trouble, but holy God, can he defend. That's why he's so sought after. That's why they want him so bad. He can really defend. He can give you a few points on offense, maybe something like 17, 19 points per game, but it's his really defensive capabilities that teams are after. It might be time to make a drastic change, like how the Raptors made a drastic change with pulling the plug on DeMar DeRozan. Him and Kyle Lowry could just never figure it out, and ultimately, Masai Ujiri made the right choice to pull the plug on him and make a huge gamble for Kawhi Leonard, and it paid off. And with the way the season has turned out, it looks very disappointing. We might see a huge trade from the Toronto Raptors in the upcoming days here, upcoming weeks. If you like this kind of content, then make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like underneath this video, and until next time, kids.